My name is Dorothy. Everybody who ever loved me called me Dot, and there aren't many of them left to call me anything now. I'm 92 years old. I was born in 1934 in a little mill town in Tennessee, up in the hills where the whistle blew at 6 and again at 4, and you set your whole life by it. My mother canned tomatoes every August till the kitchen ran with steam, and I can still smell it if I close my eyes. I'm going to tell you something today that I have kept locked up for more than 60 years. Not 60 years from other people, 60 years from the one person who would have most wanted to know I knew. My own husband went to his grave believing his secret was safe with him, and it never was. It was mine the whole time. He just never found out. I raised my husband's child by another woman, as if that boy had come from my own body, and the truth of where he came from, I carried it alone. Not my husband, not my child, not my pastor, not one soul on this earth, only me. So sit with me a while, and I'll tell you the whole of it. I'll tell you how I found out, when I wasn't ever meant to. I'll tell you why I chose to say nothing, not once, not in 40 years of marriage after. And I'll tell you the one thing I did in secret, every spring, for 60 years, that would have made the whole town gasp if they'd ever caught me at it. Stay to the end. It's the part that took me longest to understand about myself. I married Walter in 1955. I was 21 and he was 24, and he had a way of taking his hat off in a doorway that just undid me. He worked at the mill like his daddy. He wasn't a big talker, Walter, but he was steady, and steady meant everything where I came from. We got a little house on Poplar Street with a porch that leaned, and I thought my life had started. Except there was one thing I wanted more than breath itself, and it wouldn't come. A baby. Month after month, year after year, nothing. In those days they didn't have the words, or the doctors they've got now. They just looked at you a certain way at church. Poor Dot. And the women my age had their babies on their hips, and I'd hold them and hand them back, and go home and cry where Walter couldn't hear. I felt like a house with all the rooms shut up and nobody living in them. I believed, down deep, that I was being punished for something, though I couldn't have told you what. 4 years of that. 4 years of empty rooms. That's the thing you have to understand before I tell you the rest, or you'll judge what came next too quick. It was the fall of 1959. Walter came home one evening, and he was strange, wouldn't look at me square, and he said there was a baby, a little boy, just born, whose mother couldn't keep him. Some woman over in the next county who'd got herself in trouble and had nobody. Walter said he'd heard about it through a fellow at the mill, and the baby needed a home, and did I want him? Did I want him? Reader, I didn't ask a single question. I should have. Any other woman would have. But I had 4 years of shut-up rooms in me, and a man was standing in my kitchen offering me a child, and I said yes before he finished the sentence. Yes, yes, bring him home. And he did. 3 days later, Walter came up the porch steps with a bundle in a grey blanket, and I took that baby in my arms, and something in my chest that had been folded up tight for 4 years just came open all at once. We named him Daniel, Danny, and for about 2 weeks I was the happiest woman in Tennessee, and I didn't know a thing. Here's how I found out, and I'll tell you, Some part of me wishes I never had, and a bigger part knows it made me who I turned out to be. I was changing him one morning by the window, the good light coming in, and I saw it. On the back of his little left shoulder, a birthmark, wine-colored, shaped like a little state of Florida, we used to joke. And I stopped cold, because I had seen that exact mark before, in that exact place, on my husband. Walter had it, back of his left shoulder, and his father had had it before him. They used to show it off at the swimming hole. And here it was on a baby who'd supposedly come from some stranger in the next county. I want you to know what that morning was like. The floor didn't fall out from under me all at once. It went slow. I stood there holding that warm, milk-smelling baby, and I did the arithmetic a woman doesn't ever want to do. The timing, Walter's strangeness, the fellow at the mill nobody could ever quite name, and a woman I'd half heard about, worked the counter at a diner 2 towns over, gone away that summer and come back thin and quiet. Loretta, her name was. I'd only ever seen her the once. My husband had a child with another woman, and when that woman couldn't keep him, my Walter, out of guilt or love or plain terror, had brought that baby home to me and called it a rescue. And I had said yes so fast, I never gave him the chance to lie better. Now, if you've come with me this far, and if there's a knot forming in your own chest, reach down and tell me where you're listening from. Just your town, just a word. I like to picture the faces. It makes an old woman feel less alone with the thing she's held by herself too long. You'd think I'd have gone to Walter that night, screamed, wept, thrown the truth in his face and made him choke on it. I had every right in the world. That's what a wronged woman does. I looked at that baby in the crib instead, his little chest going up and down. That birthmark, my husband's own blood, sleeping under a blanket I'd knitted. And I understood something that changed the whole rest of my life. If I told the truth, I'd get my dignity back, and I'd lose my son, because the moment it all came out, he'd become the child of the scandal, the town's whisper, Walter's shame, and they'd take him from me one way or another, the courts, the church, the cruelty of people. My ruse would go dark again. So I made a bargain, right there at the crib, with nobody but God as my witness. I would keep the secret Walter didn't even know he'd need me to keep. I would let my husband believe he'd fooled his wife. I would swallow the truth whole and let it live in me, and in exchange I would get to be Danny's mother, his real one, the only one he'd ever know. And I did. Lord help me, I did it, and I'd do it again. I raised that boy, first scraped knee, first day of school, first heartbreak. I was there for every one of them. He'd come flying up those porch steps, hollering, "Mama, Mama," and every single time that word landed on me, it landed clean. It never once caught on the secret. He was mine. I chose him at that crib, and I chose him again every morning after. And there is no blood on this earth thicker than choosing somebody every single morning for 60 years. There was a bad moment once, and I'll tell it so you know what I was carrying every day. Danny must have been 14. We were at a church supper, and old Miss Pearl, who'd known Walter's people back to Adam, she took Danny's chin in her hand and turned his face up to the light and said, loud for the whole table to hear, "Lord, would you look at that? He is the very spit of Walter. Same ears, same devilment in the eye." And the whole table laughed and agreed. Isn't he though? Isn't he just? And I sat there and smiled and passed the cornbread and felt my heart going like a rabbit's, because they were nearer the truth than any of them would ever know. And one careless word off Walter's own face could have brought the whole thing down around us. But Walter just looked at his plate, and I reached under that table and found Danny's knee and gave it a squeeze, our old signal that meant I've got you, and he squeezed my hand right back without even thinking about it, and the danger went on by. And I remember thinking, this is my life now, standing guard at a door that nobody else knows is even there. And I'll tell you the sweetness in it too, because it was never all weight. There was the winter he took the scarlet fever, and I sat up 9 nights running, wringing out cloths, and on the worst of those nights his fever broke near dawn, and he opened his eyes, and the first word out of him was, "Mama." I have never in all my life heard a word I wanted more. There was teaching him to drive on the gravel roads, with both of us hollering and the dust coming up gold behind us. There was the evening he brought home the girl he was going to marry and kept watching my face across the room to see if I approved, because my approving still mattered to him more than anything in this world. That is a son. I don't care one bit how he came to me. That is a son. Walter and I had a good marriage, after. Better than before, maybe, though he never knew why I loved him so careful and so hard. He'd watch me with Danny sometimes and get this look, and I think he was afraid of it, that love, like it was a bill coming due. It never came due. I never let it. He died in 1998, my Walter, in that same little house, and I held his hand at the end. And do you know what he said? He said, "Dot, you're the best thing I ever did right." And I said, "Hush now," and I let him go, believing his secret went with him. That's the part folks won't understand, why I never told him, even at the end, even when telling couldn't have cost me a thing. I'll tell you why, because if I'd told him I knew, then all those years of my choosing wouldn't have been a gift anymore. They'd have been a debt he owed me, and I didn't do it for him. I never did it for Walter. I did it for the boy, and for the woman I turned out to be by doing it. Some things you give are only clean if nobody ever knows you gave them. Now here's the thing I did in secret. Every spring, more than 60 of them now, I have driven 2 towns over to a little churchyard, and I have put flowers on the grave of Loretta, the woman, my husband's woman, the one who gave me the only child I would ever have. She died young, poor thing, not many years after, and there was nobody to tend her, so I have, every spring. I bring her the good peonies, and I stand there and I say, thank you for my son. I've never once been angry at her, not really. She lost him, I got to keep him. Between the two of us, I was the lucky one, and I've spent 60 years trying to be worthy of it. Danny's an old man himself now, 66 years old, grey as a goose, grandchildren of his own. And he still calls me Mama, and he still comes up my steps, slower now, but he comes. And I have decided, after all these years, that I am not going to tell him, not ever. Not to unburden myself in my last stretch, which would only be me handing my stone to him to carry. He knows exactly who his mother is. She's the one who was there. That's the only true thing, and it's truer than any birthmark. So if you're out there and you're holding somebody who didn't come to you the easy way, a stepchild, a grandchild you're raising, a baby that came through a hard door, you hear me. Blood is not the thing. Blood is just how some of us start. Choosing is how you become somebody's. You choose them at the crib, and you choose them every morning after. And one day you look up and 60 years have gone by, and that child is more yours than your own hands. If this reached you somewhere real, then stay near. I've got more truth in me than years left to tell it. And tell me down below about the one you chose, or the one who chose you. Say their name where I can see it. There's no shame in any of it. There never was. It took me 92 years to know that for sure. I'm going to go put the coffee on now, and later on Danny's coming by, and I'll make the biscuits the way he likes, and I will look at that boy across my kitchen the way I've looked at him his whole life, like the best thing I ever did right, which he is. He always was. My name is Dorothy, and that child was mine from the first morning I chose him, and he will be mine long after I'm gone.